He wouldn't let anyone near him. Not the medics, not the veterinarian, not even the military police who'd rushed him in from the cold. The doors of the Fort Carson Medical Bay slammed shut against a Colorado winter that had no mercy. Snow pressed against the narrow windows in thick, wind-driven sheets, blurring the outside world into a white smear. Inside, the air smelled of antiseptic and iron. Boots squeaked on tile. A gurney rattled to a stop. Strapped to it was a Belgian Malinois named Rex. Blood had soaked through the canvas beneath him, dark and spreading, pooling in slow pulses that matched the thudding beat of his heart. His hind leg was torn open. Ragged muscle, clotted snow, grit from the field. Anyone who had seen combat injuries knew the look. Anyone who had worked with military working dogs knew. The clock had already started. Rex didn't bark. He didn't whine. He didn't thrash. He watched. His eyes tracked every movement in the room with unnerving precision. The lift of a gloved hand, the shift of a shoulder, the subtle step back when someone realized how alert he still was. Those eyes weren't wild. They were sharp, focused. The kind of eyes that had spent years scanning doorways and shadows, waiting for a threat to make one wrong move. A young medic tried first. He approached slowly, voice soft, the way they taught you in basic handling. Easy, boy. Easy now. He reached for the straps. Rex moved faster than the eye could follow. Teeth flashed. The leather muzzle snapped tight. The medic stumbled back. Heart pounding, breath caught somewhere between fear and disbelief. Jesus, someone muttered. Another attempt followed, then another. Each one ended the same way. Hands retreating, confidence evaporating, a growing ring of space forming around the gurney, like a perimeter no one dared to cross. They whispered now, not loudly, the way people do when they think the subject of their concern can't understand them. He's dangerous. He's too far gone. That dog's done. Dr. Hannah Moore, the base veterinarian, stood near the supply counter, arms folded, jaw tight. She'd seen animals in pain before. She'd seen fear. This was something else. Rex wasn't lashing out. He was holding ground. Every time someone came close, he shifted just enough to remind them he still had strength left, and that he was prepared to use it. Vitals? Dropping, a nurse replied. He's bleeding fast. Outside, the wind howled. Snow hammered the walls. Inside, time narrowed, to the space between Rex's breath and the next drop of blood hitting the floor. Military police stood by the door, uneasy. They'd carried Rex in themselves. They knew what he was trained to do. They also knew what he'd lost. But no one said it out loud. A technician reached for the sedative tray. Rex's ears pinned back. A low sound rolled up from his chest. Not a warning, but a line being drawn. No one touch him. Not yet. Every second mattered. Every second pushed them closer to a decision none of them wanted. In the corner, someone shook their head. Time 500 memos. He's not going to make it. The words hung there. Heavy. Final. Rex lifted his head slightly, not because he understood the sentence, but because he understood the tone. He wasn't afraid of pain. He was afraid of being taken apart. The room felt smaller now. And then, from the doorway, someone stepped inside. No announcement. No authority. Just the soft crunch of snow melting off boots. Rex's ears twitched. For the first time, his eyes moved toward the door, and somewhere deep in his chest, something old stirred. The man in the doorway didn't speak. He didn't need to. Rex's gaze stayed fixed there, unblinking, as if the rest of the room had faded into background noise. His breathing slowed. Not calm, not safe, but measured, controlled, like a sentry reassessing a perimeter. Dr. Moore noticed it immediately. "Who's that?" A military police officer glanced over his shoulder. "Just a SEAL. Logistics, I think. Came in with the last convoy." The man stepped fully inside now. Snow clung to the cuffs of his pants, melting into dark patches on the floor. His jacket was unzipped, flecked with dried mud, and something darker that hadn't come from the weather. He looked young, not green exactly, but not seasoned. He stayed near the wall, hands loose at his sides, eyes not on the wound, but on the dog. Rex shifted his weight. It wasn't aggression. It was recognition, or the ghost of it. "Sir, you can't be in here." The man nodded once, but he didn't leave. He didn't step closer either. He just watched. The way you watch something fragile, you're not sure you're allowed to touch. Dr. Moore turned back to the gurney. "All right," she said. "Let's talk straight. Has anyone confirmed the handler's status?" The room went quiet. An older MP finally spoke. "Staff Sergeant Mark Lewis, KIA, 2 nights ago." The words landed hard. Rex's ears flattened. Not fully, just enough to betray the strain beneath his discipline. His chest hitched once, a sharp inhale that never quite made it back out. For a brief second, his eyes darted, scanning the room faster now, searching for a shape that refused to appear. Dr. Moore closed her eyes. They'd all suspected it. Military working dogs didn't come back like this, unless something had gone terribly wrong. They didn't crawl half a mile through snow with a torn leg, unless they were following a command that had outlived the voice that gave it. "Extraction team found him near the rally point," the MP continued. "No handler, no leash. He was dragging himself forward, like he still had a job to finish." "How long was he out there?" "Too long." Rex let out a sound then. Not a growl, not a bark. A low, broken noise from somewhere deep in his chest. The kind of sound that wasn't meant for anyone else to hear. The man by the wall stiffened. "You knew the handler?" "I knew of him," the man said. "Everyone did." Rex's head lifted higher. Not fear, not trust. Attention. "Name?" "Evan Cole," he said. "Petty officer." "Rookie," someone muttered. Evan didn't react. Dr. Moore leaned toward Rex. "Okay, boy," she said. "We're going to help you." She reached for the IV line. Rex snapped the air, inches from her glove. The line dropped to the floor. "That's it. We're out of options." "No," Dr. Moore said. "We're not there yet." "Yes, we are," another voice cut in. "If we don't sedate him, we lose him." Rex backed toward the corner of the gurney, not to escape, to brace. Evan took one slow step forward. "Don't," the MP warned. "I'm not going to touch him," Evan said. "Then what are you going to do?" Evan looked at Rex. Really looked. "He's not refusing treatment," Evan said quietly. "He's refusing strangers. There's a difference." Rex's eyes never left him. "What do you suggest?" Evan inhaled. "I think he's still waiting for his handler to tell him it's okay. That handler's not coming back." "I know." The needle slid into view. Rex tensed, every muscle ready. Evan stepped forward again. "Wait." Rex leaned toward him, eyes locked, and Evan realized there was only one thing left to try. The needle hovered in the air, thin, unforgiving. Dr. Hannah Moore didn't like the way her hand felt, too steady for a decision this uncertain. She'd learned long ago that when medicine became purely procedural, something human had already slipped through the cracks. Still, blood loss didn't wait for feelings. It waited for action. "Vitals are dipping again," the nurse said. The numbers flickered, stubborn and slow. Rex's body tightened. His shoulders rose. His jaw set. Not panic, never panic. Readiness. He wasn't preparing to attack. He was preparing to endure. Evan Cole stood just inside the invisible line no one else dared to cross. He felt the weight of the room on his back. Rank, rules, expectation, and something else. Quieter, heavier. The certainty that if they did this wrong, they wouldn't just lose the dog. They'd lose what the dog was holding together. "Doctor," Evan said, keeping his voice low, "if you sedate him like that, with his pressure where it is—" "I know the risks," Dr. Moore cut in. "I also know he won't survive another 10 minutes like this." Rex's eyes flicked between them. He understood none of the words and all of the meaning. Voices sharpened. Hands moved with intent. The room shifted from concern to control. A technician stepped forward with restraints. Rex exploded. Time thousands. The sound that tore out of him wasn't a snarl. It was a warning. Raw. Final. He surged against the straps. Muscles bunched. Claws scraped metal. The gurney shuddered. Restraints snapped loose, clattering across the floor. "Back!" Chairs skidded. Metal rang against tile like dropped coins. Through it all, Rex never tried to run. He backed himself into the corner, chest heaving, tail low, eyes blazing. Blood ran freely now, dark, relentless. "He's unmanageable," someone whispered. "We can't do this." Dr. Moore's jaw tightened. I won't lose him because we hesitated. She reached for the syringe. Evan felt his pulse in his throat. He remembered another room, another winter, another dog, waiting for a voice that never came. He remembered walking out afterward, hands empty, telling himself he'd done everything he could. He hadn't. Doctor, Evan said again, please. You're asking me to gamble his life. I'm asking you to give me 30 seconds. If I'm wrong, I'll step out. You do whatever you have to do. 30 seconds might be all he has. Rex's breathing hitched. His eyes locked onto Evan, trying to place him in a memory that wouldn't surface. Dr. Moore hesitated. She hated that she hesitated. 30 seconds, she said. That's it. Evan nodded. He didn't thank her. He didn't smile. He stepped forward, then stopped. He remembered the rule that mattered most. Don't rush the moment that decides everything. He knelt 2 feet away, no closer, hands visible, palms empty. He didn't look at the wound. He didn't look at the blood. He looked at Rex's eyes and lowered his voice until it barely carried. The room held its breath. Rex growled once, low, uncertain, not a threat, a question. I know, Evan said softly. Not to command, not to calm, just to answer. The monitor beeped. Slow, uneven. A drop of blood hit the floor. Then another. Evan felt the seconds slipping. He felt the needle waiting. He leaned forward just an inch. Rex stiffened, then paused. Evan swallowed. There was no turning back. What he was about to say wasn't in any manual. It belonged to another time, before losses piled up, before names were carved into walls. He took a breath, and the room went so quiet. Even the wind outside seemed to stop. The silence Evan created didn't break. It deepened. No one spoke. Not the medics. Not the MPs. Not Dr. Moore, whose fingers hovered inches from a decision she'd made 1,000 times before. But never like this. The only sound in the room was the uneven rhythm of the heart monitor, and the wind pressing snow against reinforced glass like it wanted inside. Evan stayed where he was, kneeling, still. His presence felt almost inconvenient, too quiet, too ordinary for a room built on urgency and rank. He wasn't wearing a medic's patch. He didn't carry authority in his posture. His uniform was creased, stained from transport, the kind of SEAL gear that told a different story than the ones commanders liked to hear. Someone near the wall whispered, "Who let him in here?" No one answered. Rex's eyes never left Evan. They tracked him with the same discipline that once followed hand signals in darkness. That memorized a single human silhouette and built an entire world of trust around it. His body remained coiled, but something had shifted. An angle in his stance, a fraction less tension through the shoulders. Dr. Moore noticed. She read animals the way some people read storms. You didn't watch the lightning. You watched the pressure change before it struck. And right now, the pressure around Rex had changed. "You know this dog?" she asked quietly. Evan didn't look away. "Not personally." That answer satisfied no one. "Then why is he focused on you?" Evan exhaled through his nose. "Because I'm not trying to fix him." The words landed awkwardly, in a room built to fix things. "He's bleeding out." "I know," Evan said. His voice didn't rise. "And he knows." Rex's ears twitched, not at the words, at the cadence. Familiar, in a way that didn't need a name. "What do you think is happening here, petty officer?" Evan shifted his weight, careful not to move closer. "I think he's still on duty." That got a reaction, a humorless laugh from the door. "That's ridiculous. He's a dog." Evan looked up, eyes steady, tired. "With respect, ma'am, he's a military working dog. He was trained to hold position under fire, to guard bodies, to wait for orders even when everything else is gone." Rex's chest rose and fell, slower now. "He's not attacking anyone," Evan continued. "He's denying access. There's a difference." Dr. Moore felt something tighten. "You're saying he thinks this is still a mission?" "I'm saying he doesn't understand why the mission ended." The implication settled heavy. "Handler was killed." Evan nodded. "Exactly." Rex growled low, not at Evan, at the memory. "You worked logistics," Dr. Moore said slowly. "That's not K-9 handling. Not anymore." "What were you before?" Evan hesitated. "Transition protocols." Transition from what? From active handler to no handler. Rex shifted, closer, just an inch. The monitor beeped, steadier, still fragile. Boots echoed in the hallway. Authority boots. "What's taking so long?" Rex stiffened. Evan leaned forward. "Easy," he murmured. "Not a command. A promise." Rex didn't relax, but he didn't pull away. And for the first time since the battlefield, the dog stayed. Which moment hits you hardest so far? 1. Rex refusing help. 2. Learning the handler is gone. Or 3. Evan stepping in with nothing but his voice. Drop 1, 2, or 3 in the comments right now. The commander's boots stopped just short of the threshold. He took in the scene with a glance. Blood on the floor, instruments scattered. A SEAL kneeling where no one had ordered him to kneel. His mouth opened to speak. Rex moved. Not forward, not back. He shifted his weight, subtle, deliberate, angling his body so his shoulder blocked the line between Evan and the rest of the room. A trained motion, almost invisible, unless you knew what to look for. A protective wedge, a living barrier. Evan felt it before he saw it. The warmth of the dog's flank, the steady heat that meant, "I'm still here." He didn't reach out. He didn't change his posture. He simply stayed. "Hold," Dr. Moore said quietly. The commander frowned. Doctor? Just a second, sir. That alone told Evan something had changed. His eyes dropped, not to the wound, but to Rex's paws. Planted with intent, toes splayed just enough to distribute weight evenly, not random. Textbook low-profile recon posture, the kind taught to dogs trained to hold ground without escalating. Evan had studied that stance, memorized the tiny tells that meant a dog was working through fear, not drowning in it. He's not lunging anymore, a nurse whispered. No, Dr. Moore replied. He's anchoring. Rex adjusted, tracking movement, mapping space, not confused, assessing. Evan's voice stayed low. You're doing your job, he said. I see it. Not commands. Acknowledgement. Rex's breathing slowed again. The commander stepped in. Rank filled the room like pressure. Why is treatment paused? Dr. Moore didn't look at him. Because if we rush this, we lose him. We're already losing him. Rex tensed. Evan spoke. Sir, he's responding. To what? To recognition. He's refusing replacement. Silence. You're anthropomorphizing, the commander said. Evan nodded. Then explain why his pupils aren't blown, why his hackles aren't raised, why he hasn't redirected aggression. Dr. Moore turned. He's right. This isn't panic behavior. Evan saw the scar. Old, precise, tactical. He ran black zone drills. You're sure? Yes, ma'am. Understanding settled in. Evan leaned forward a breath. Rex. Not a cue. Just a name. You're clear, he said softly. I've got eyes. Rex exhaled, long, shaky. His stance loosened, not surrendering, sharing the load. Proceed slow, Dr. Moore said. No restraints, no sedatives. I'll take responsibility. He's choosing. Rex moved first, one paw, trembling, crossing the line. Evan's hand settled at the base of Rex's neck, exactly where a handler's thumb would rest. Rex leaned in. Outside, the wind still howled. Inside, time finally stopped feeling like the enemy. The door hissed as it slid open again, letting in a gust of cold air and authority. A senior officer stepped inside. Jacket crisp, expression already set. He took in the scene in seconds. The kneeling SEAL, the bleeding K-9, the veterinarian standing still instead of working. His patience evaporated. What is going on here? Rex reacted instantly. Not with teeth, not with sound. His muscles tightened, spine straightening, like a switch had been flipped. He shifted again, placing himself squarely between Evan and the officer. Controlled, practiced, protective. Evan felt the tension travel through Rex's frame like an electrical current. He didn't pull his hand away. He didn't add pressure. He simply kept it there. Steady. Familiar. Sir. Dr. Moore said carefully. We're in the middle of a critical behavioral window. The officer frowned. That animal is hemorrhaging. Why isn't he sedated? Because sedation could kill him, she replied. And because right now, he's cooperating. The officer's eyes snapped to Evan. And who authorized this? No one answered. That wasn't a question. Evan rose slowly, careful not to startle Rex. Sir, he said evenly, I requested 30 seconds. The doctor approved. The officer laughed once, humorless. You're a petty officer. You don't make requests in my trauma bay. Rex growled, time 600 mounds. Low, controlled. The room stiffened. Get him out. Now. 2 MPs stepped forward. Rex loaded. Head snapped up. Ears pinned. Teeth flashed. Just enough. Not a lunge. A warning. Evan raised his hand. Palm open. Easy, he said quietly. Rex held. Barely. If you remove him, Dr. Moore warned, you'll lose the dog. That's not your call. Evan met the officer's eyes. Sir, he thinks you're taking his handler away again. Silence. That handler is dead. And Rex doesn't understand that, Evan replied. All he understands is that the one person he let close just got threatened. Rex stayed planted, guarding, trembling. Escort him out. Hands reached for Evan. Rex snapped. Air. Inches. No contact. Back! Evan didn't move. Rex, he said softly. Stand down. Muscles locked. Breath ragged. I'm not leaving, Evan said, but I need you to hold. Seconds stretched. Rex exhaled, jaw unclenched, half a step back. The officer stared. What the hell is this? This is trauma, Dr. Moore said. And that man is the only stabilizing factor. Silence. Get him out, the officer said again. Quieter. Time 1500 miss. Evan knelt. I have to step out, he murmured. Just for a moment. Rex tensed. I'll be right outside, Evan said. Same place. Same voice. I promise. Evan stepped back. Rex watched. Growled. Soft. You're not alone, Evan said. The door closed. Rex sagged. The sound that followed cracked something in everyone. Blood pooled faster. Prep suction, now. Outside. Evan leaned against the wall. He could still hear Rex breathing. And he knew. If this went on, the dog would give up. Not because of the wound, but because the last promise he believed in had just walked away. The moment Evan disappeared down the hallway, the room felt colder. Not from the wind outside, but from the absence of something steady. Rex sensed it immediately, his eyes fixed on the closed door. Waiting. Counting breaths. The way he'd been trained to do on long Overwatch nights. 1 breath, 2, 3. No footsteps returning. His body sagged. The strength that had held him upright finally gave way. His injured leg buckled. He didn't cry out. He simply folded, chest hitting the gurney with a dull thud. Blood spilled faster now, darker, spreading beneath the metal frame. "Pressure's dropping," the nurse said. "We're losing him." Dr. Moore moved fast. Gloves snapped on, suction dragged closer. "I need clear access," she said. "Now." Rex didn't fight anymore. That scared her more than the snapping ever had. His head lay turned toward the door, eyes open, unfocused, listening for a sound that wasn't coming. His breathing grew shallow, each inhale shorter than the last. The discipline was gone. The job was gone. All that remained was a dog who had done everything he was asked to do and still been left alone. A tech reached in to clean the wound. Rex flinched once. Weak. No teeth. No warning. Just resignation. Dr. Moore swallowed hard. "Prep. Sedation," she ordered. "Low dose. We don't have a choice." The officer nodded. "About damn time." The needle was drawn. Rex didn't react. That was the moment something broke in the room. "He's not even resisting," the nurse whispered. "He's done." Dr. Moore stared. This wasn't just blood loss. This was collapse, physical and psychological. Outside, Evan stood frozen against the wall, listening. He could hear the change even through reinforced glass. Faster footsteps, sharper voices, the sound of a window closing. He pressed his forehead to the cold concrete, jaw clenched. He'd promised. Inside, Rex's breathing stuttered, eyes fluttered, struggling to stay open. Somewhere deep, an old command echoed, the one that had carried him across snow and gunfire. "Stay." But there was no one left to say it. "Sedative going in." Dr. Moore's hand trembled. The needle moved closer. Rex's ears twitched. Not toward the needle, toward the door. "Wait!" The door slammed open. Evan stepped inside. Breath hard. Eyes blazing. He went straight to Rex. "Stop," he said. "You sedate him. You stop his heart." "You were told to leave." "I know," Evan said. "And you've got less than a minute." Rex lifted his head. Just an inch, Evan dropped to his knees. Same place, same distance, same calm. "I'm here," he said. "I told you I would be." Rex's eyes found his. "He's responding," the nurse breathed. "This is the only thing that's worked." Evan leaned closer. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "I should never have left." Rex shifted. Slow, painful, angling himself toward Evan. One last attempt to stand guard. Blood still poured. Time still ran out. Evan closed his eyes. When he opened them, the hesitation was gone. What he was about to do wasn't approved, wasn't written, wasn't supposed to exist anymore. He leaned in closer. And for the first time that night, he didn't speak in English. The room didn't move. Not when Evan knelt. Not when his voice dropped. Not even when he spoke words no one there recognized. They weren't loud. They weren't dramatic. They didn't sound like commands at all. The syllables were clipped, measured, almost gentle, spoken the way someone speaks into a radio during a long night watch, when shouting meant danger and silence meant survival. Rex froze, not stiffened, not recoiled. He froze the way a seasoned operator does when a signal finally cuts through static. His shallow breathing stalled mid-inhale. His ears lifted, just enough to catch everything that followed. The growl that had lived in his chest since the battlefield vanished, as if it had never been there. Dr. Moore felt the hairs rise on her arms. "What did you just say?" the officer demanded. Evan didn't answer. He kept his eyes on Rex, his posture unchanged, his tone steady. He spoke again. Another short phrase, equally foreign, equally calm. Around them, the monitors continued their uneven rhythm. But the urgency in the room shifted. Something intangible settled in. Rex's body trembled once, then again. Slowly, painfully, he shifted his weight forward. The movement was so small, half the room missed it. A paw slid an inch across the metal surface, claws clicking softly. It wasn't obedience. It wasn't collapse. It was an offering, a nurse gasped. He moved. Evan stayed still. He didn't reach. He didn't reward. He waited. Rex's eyes locked onto his face. Searching. Not for dominance, not for permission, but for confirmation. Evan gave it with the smallest nod, the kind handlers used when words were unnecessary. Rex exhaled, long, uneven, air leaving lungs that had been braced too long. His shoulders lowered, the rigid line of his spine softened. And then, with deliberate care, he extended his injured leg farther, placing it within reach. The room went deathly quiet. "No sedation," Dr. Moore whispered. "He's choosing." The officer stepped back. "That's not possible." Evan finally looked up. His voice was calm, steel beneath it. "It is, when you understand what he lost." Rex lowered his head next, not to the floor, but toward Evan's knee. He didn't collapse. He rested. Just enough contact to say, "I remember." Evan placed one hand at the base of Rex's neck, exactly where a handler's grip would settle during long transport rides. No pressure, just presence. Rex didn't flinch. Dr. Moore moved, not fast, not slow, precisely. "Suction," she said. "Light only, no restraints." Rex stayed still. Evan continued speaking. Same cadence. Not commands, not reassurance. Memory. Built through endless drills, through trust exercises that never made it into manuals. That language, the officer said. That protocol, it's not active. It was never meant to be, Evan replied. It's for dogs who lose their handlers. The weight of that landed. Rex's vitals stabilized. Not perfect, not safe yet, but holding. He's not calm, Evan said. He's working. Rex endured, trusted, held the line. The chaos was gone, replaced by a focused hush. No one mocked. No one whispered. They watched. We bought him time, Dr. Moore said. Real time. Rex made a sound then. Not pain. Something softer. Something that cracked halfway through. Evan swallowed. His hand stayed steady. Outside, the storm still raged. Inside, something irreversible had already happened. Rex had decided, and everyone there understood. They had just witnessed something no protocol, no insurance policy, no machine could ever replicate. An act of trust, forged in loss, loyalty, and a voice that refused to let him face the dark alone. The room was still holding its breath when Evan spoke again. This time, the words came slower, measured, deliberate, spoken with the weight of something that had not been used in years. Something never meant to be overheard by people who hadn't earned the right to hear it. The cadence wasn't accidental. It followed a pattern Rex had learned long before blood, long before snow, long before the night he lost his handler. Rex's ears tilted forward, not alert, not aggressive. Listening. Dr. Moore felt it then. The unmistakable shift that happens when fear loosens its grip and something older takes over. Experience, conditioning, memory. She had worked with military working dogs for over a decade. She had never seen this. Not like this. What is that? A nurse whispered. Evan didn't answer. His eyes stayed on Rex as he finished the phrase. 6 syllables, clipped short, ending on a low note. When the last sound faded, silence rushed in to fill the space it left behind. Rex reacted instantly. His rigid posture softened in a way that couldn't be faked. The tension that had pulled his muscles tight since the battlefield drained out through a slow, controlled exhale. His shoulders dipped, his head lowered, not in submission, not in pain, but in recognition. And then he did something no one expected. Rex shifted forward again. Farther this time, deliberately. He extended his injured leg. He didn't drop it. He placed it, carefully, precisely, exactly where it needed to be. For a moment, no one moved. Oh my God, the nurse breathed. Dr. Moore felt her throat tighten. This wasn't tolerance. This wasn't shutdown. This was consent. He's offering it, she said softly. Evan nodded once. That's the signal. Signal for what? The officer asked. For treatment, Evan replied, without restraint. Rex held still as Dr. Moore approached. Slow, respectful, staying within his field of vision. When her gloved hands neared the wound, Rex tensed. just a fraction, then settled. His eyes flicked to Evan, searching. Evan met his gaze and spoke again, quieter now, not the full phrase, just the first half. Rex stayed. The doctor worked. Blood was cleared away, revealing the true depth of the injury. It was bad, worse than hoped, but survivable if handled carefully. Pain came in waves. Each time Rex's jaw tightened, and each time he stayed. He trusted the voice. Dr. Moore's hands moved faster now, confidence replacing caution. "Suction steady," she ordered. "Pack the wound. Light pressure." The officer watched, stunned. "That code, it's not active." "It isn't," Evan said. "Not officially." "Then why does it work?" Evan looked at Rex. "Because it was never about commands. It was about what happens when the handler doesn't come back." The room felt colder. "You were part of that program," Dr. Moore said. "I helped write it." Rex made a low sound. Not pain, not fear. Grief. Evan adjusted his tone. Another phrase. Softer. Rex relaxed again. "He's regulating to your voice," Dr. Moore whispered. "He's remembering," Evan said. The bleeding slowed. The monitor steadied. Real time had been bought. Rex lowered his head, resting it against Evan's knee. Not collapsing. Choosing. "That mark," Dr. Moore said. "It's from training." "What unit was he with?" Evan hesitated. "One that doesn't exist anymore." Rex stayed still, breathing steady. The worst moment had passed. This wasn't just about saving a dog. It was about honoring a bond that didn't die on the battlefield. And the code Evan spoke wasn't secret because it was classified. It was secret because it was built from loss. No one spoke. Not when Rex settled his weight against Evan's knee. Not when the monitor's rhythm smoothed into something steadier. Not when Dr. Moore slowly lowered her hands, realizing they had crossed the most dangerous edge without losing him. The room had changed, not because people were afraid to talk, but because no one wanted to break what had just been built. Rex stayed exactly where he was. His injured leg lay extended, bandaged now. Pressure wrapped tight, but careful. The bleeding had slowed to a manageable seep. His breathing, still shallow, found a rhythm. Each inhale came with effort, but it came. And each exhale seemed to carry something heavy away with it. Evan remained kneeling, posture unchanged. His hand rested at the base of Rex's neck, fingers still, offering nothing but presence. He didn't look at the officers. He didn't look at the equipment. He watched Rex's eyes, reading every small change the way he'd been trained to read men on the edge of shock. Rex blinked once, slowly. The nurse closest to the gurney let out a breath she'd been holding too long. He's stable," Dr. Moore nodded. "For now." She stepped back half a pace, giving Rex space. staying within reach. This, whatever it was, needed waiting. The senior officer finally spoke. "Explain. Now." Evan didn't answer immediately. He waited. Until Rex's breathing evened again. Until the faint tremor in the dog's flank settled. "He's not sedated," the officer said. "He should be in agony." "He is," Evan replied. "He's just choosing to endure it." "That's not possible." "It is," Evan said, "when the alternative is worse." "Worse than pain?" Evan met his eyes. Being handled by someone he doesn't recognize, after losing the only person he trusted. That landed hard. Dr. Moore spoke. "He's conscious. He's aware. He's consenting." Consenting? In the only way he knows how. Rex shifted slightly. More of his shoulder pressed against Evan. Not weakness. Anchoring. "You said that code wasn't active." "It's not," Evan replied. "It was designed to bring dogs back from a moment like this." "And then what?" Evan's jaw tightened. "That part was never written." Silence followed. "Move him to recovery," Dr. Moore said. Slowly, no restraints, minimal staff. The officer nodded. "Do it." They moved inch by inch, keeping Rex within Evan's sight line. When a wheel caught, Rex tensed. Evan leaned closer. "I've got you." Rex stayed. The recovery bay dimmed, built for rest, not urgency. Shouldn't he be restrained? No. Rex lowered his head, resting it against Evan's thigh. Eyes open. The fight paused. Not gone. "You didn't save him," the officer said. "You delayed the inevitable. Maybe." Rex's tail shifted once. Not a wag. A confirmation. "He bought himself a chance," Dr. Moore said. "That's more than we had." Staff filtered out, until only Evan, Rex, and the hum of machines remained. Snow fell softer outside, the storm easing. Rex's breathing slowed, eyes fluttered, resting, not closing. Evan stayed. Because sometimes the most expensive equipment in a military hospital isn't the machines, or the trauma bays, or the care plans written in meetings. Sometimes it's a voice. The recovery bay never felt like a place where lives were saved. It felt like a place where they were weighed. Soft lighting replaced the glare of the trauma room. Machines hummed instead of shouted. The air smelled cleaner here. Less iron, more disinfectant. But the danger hadn't passed. It had only changed shape. Rex lay still on the padded surface. His head rested against Evan's thigh. Eyes half open, not asleep. Listening. Every breath mattered now. Every shift of fabric. Every footstep beyond the glass. Dr. Moore stood at the monitor. "Heart rate's holding," she said. "Blood pressure's low, but responsive." "That's good, right?" "It's enough. For now." No one said the rest. Enough could change in seconds. Evan hadn't moved, not once. His leg had gone numb. He ignored it. He knew better. Rex was anchored. The dog's breathing rose and fell against him, shallow, steady, each exhale warm through the fabric of his uniform. Rex shifted once, barely perceptible, ears toward the door, then back to Evan. "I'm here," Evan murmured. Not reassurance, confirmation. Dr. Moore approached slowly, kneeling just within Rex's field of vision. "I need to check the wound again," she said. "No surprises." Rex tensed. Time 700 mouses. But he didn't pull away. Evan spoke one word, same cadence, a fragment of the code, not to command, to remind. Rex exhaled. Dr. Moore worked, careful, precise. The packing held. The bleeding stayed quiet. "We need fluids," she said. "Slow infusion. Antibiotics when safe." The senior officer watched. "What about sedation?" "Not yet," Dr. Moore said. "If we push him, we lose what's stabilizing him." And that would be trust. Rex tracked the room. Hierarchy, threat, discipline, redirected. Evan spoke again. Same rhythm. Words about continuity. About a promise that didn't need explaining. Minutes passed. Then more. The IV line went in. Rex flinched. Once. Then settled. The monitor steadied. Someone whispered, "Good boy." Evan didn't. Praise wasn't the language. Presence was. Outside the bay, people gathered, watching through glass, afraid to disturb what was holding together. "If he holds 20 more minutes," Dr. Moore said, "we move him to extended care. And after that, we figure out what comes next." Rex pressed his head more firmly into Evan's leg. Not need. Decision. Evan stayed. The clock moved. Snow fell softer. The storm broke apart. Inside, the race continued. Not against time, but against the line between holding on and letting go. No one spoke. They didn't need to. Because for the first time, the fight wasn't loud. It was quiet. And it was working. The question had been sitting in the room for a while. Waiting. Before anyone finally voiced it. Dr. Moore waited. Until Rex's breathing settled into a rhythm she trusted. Only then did she look up from the monitor and turn toward Evan. Her tone wasn't clinical now. It was careful. "You didn't learn that protocol in logistics." Evan didn't answer right away. Rex's head lifted slightly, eyes searching Evan's face. Evan noticed, and without thinking, he adjusted, lowering his voice just enough to keep the dog anchored. Rex settled again, satisfied. Dr. Moore watched that exchange. "You don't have to explain," she said, "but I need to understand what we're dealing with if we're going to keep him alone." The senior officer stood near the doorway, arms crossed, listening now. Evan exhaled. The sound carried more weight than the words that followed. "I wasn't always a SEAL," he said. "Not the way you're thinking." No one spoke. "Before I transferred," Evan continued, "I worked with a small K-9 development group. Behavioral conditioning. Handler loss contingencies. The things nobody wanted to plan for, because planning for them meant admitting how often they happened." Rex's ears flicked. Not distress. Recognition. "We didn't train attack dogs," Evan said. "We trained partners. Dogs meant for missions where a handler might not come back. We had to answer one question. What happens to the dog when the voice it trusts disappears?" Dr. Moore swallowed. "And this code—" "It wasn't a command," Evan said. "It was a bridge. A way to tell the dog, the mission changed, but you didn't fail. You're still seen." The officer shifted. "Why was it buried?" Evan's jaw tightened. "Because it worked." Silence followed. "When it worked," Evan continued, "dogs didn't break. They grieved. They adapted. And then they chose. Sometimes they returned to duty. Sometimes they didn't. Command didn't like that kind of uncertainty." Rex shifted slightly. Evan's hand moved instinctively, steadying him. Rex didn't flinch. "You left that program," Dr. Moore said. "Yes." "Why?" Evan hesitated. His eyes dropped. Not to the floor, but to the old scar behind Rex's ear. "Because I kept watching dogs survive the battlefield and lose everything afterward." Rex made a low sound, barely audible. "I stayed long enough to help write the protocols," Evan said. "Then I transferred. Told myself if I changed uniforms, the memories would stay buried. Until tonight," the officer said. Evan nodded. Rex lifted his head, turned just enough for his muzzle to brush Evan's knee. "Not need. Answer." "He remembers," Dr. Moore said softly. "Not me," Evan replied. "The work, the voice pattern, what it means." "So what happens now?" "Time 600 MEMS." Evan looked down at Rex. The question was alive, breathing, leaning into his leg. "Now," Evan said, "we don't force him back into a system that tells him his handler was replaceable." Rex's tail shifted once, not a wag. Agreement. "There will be paperwork," the officer said. "Reviews, recommendations. I expect that. And when they ask why he responds only to you?" Evan didn't hesitate. "Because I'm the only one here who speaks the language of what he lost." Rex exhaled. His body relaxed another fraction. "That needs to be documented," Dr. Moore said. "Not buried." The officer studied Evan, then nodded once. "We'll see." Dawn crept across the base. The storm spent. Rex's eyes fluttered. Not closing. Resting. Evan stayed. Because some truths don't belong in reports or manuals. Some truths only exist in moments like this. Between a wounded K-9 a man who tried to outrun his past, and a promise spoken in a language most people never knew existed. And for Rex, that was enough. The shift in the room was subtle, but it was real. It began with the officer's posture. Shoulders once squared and immovable softened as he stepped fully into the recovery bay. The rank on his collar no longer filled the space the way it had earlier. He took a breath and looked at Rex, not as an asset, not as a case file, but as a living presence that had already rewritten the rules. "I need to understand something," he said. "Is this temporary?" Rex's ears flicked, then settled. He didn't move away from Evan. He didn't brace, he stayed. Evan answered without lifting his eyes. "Nothing about this is temporary. It's just honest." The officer frowned. "You're asking us to accept a situation where a military working dog won't tolerate standard handling." Dr. Moore stepped in, measured. "I'm asking you to accept reality. Right now, Rex is stable because of proximity and trust. Remove either, and we risk regression." Regression? Physiological and psychological. His vitals are linked to his stress response. That's not theory. That's what we're watching. Rex shifted slightly, a careful adjustment for his injured leg. Evan's hand followed without thinking, steadying him. Rex didn't look at the officer. He watched Evan, waiting for the world to make sense again. The officer took a step closer, then stopped, careful not to cross whatever invisible boundary Rex had drawn. "And if I order him separated?" Rex's head lifted, not aggressively, alertly. Evan felt it immediately. He didn't speak. He didn't touch. He met Rex's eyes and held them. Dr. Moore didn't wait. "Then you'll undo everything we've accomplished tonight." The officer studied Rex's posture, the readiness, the restraint, the discipline still intact beneath the trauma. He spoke quietly. "He's still working." "Yes," Evan replied. "Just not for the mission you think." Silence stretched. Outside the glass, staff gathered again, watching. The way you watch a line being crossed for the first time. The officer exhaled. "I've seen dogs break," he said. "I've seen handlers carry that guilt for years." Evan finally looked up. "Then don't add to it." Rex's tail shifted once, low, restrained. The officer nodded, slowly. "All right." The word landed heavier than a shouted command. "For now," he continued, "no reassignment, no forced separation. We document the response and proceed under medical discretion." Dr. Moore exhaled. "Thank you, sir." The officer turned to Evan. "This doesn't make you his handler." "I know. But it makes you responsible." Evan nodded once. "I accept that." Rex leaned a fraction closer, as if the word responsible meant something he understood. The officer paused at the door. "What happens when the board asks why protocol was overridden?" Dr. Moore answered. "Because it saved his life." The officer looked back at Rex. Rex met his eyes. Calm. Boundaries understood. "I'll back it." He left. The door closed softly, not with authority, but with finality. The room breathed again. Rex lowered his head, resting it fully against Evan's leg, eyes half closed, no longer fighting every sound. The monitors hummed. Steady. "We'll move him to extended care later," Dr. Moore said. "Same conditions." "I'll stay." "You don't have to." "Yes," Evan said. "I do." Rex's breathing deepened. Slow. Heavy with exhaustion. And relief. Sunlight broke through the clouds. Snow glinted outside. For the first time since Rex was dragged in bleeding and alone, he wasn't guarding the door. He was resting. And everyone understood. This wasn't defiance. It was recognition. Of loss. Of loyalty. And of the rare moment when authority chose to listen instead of command. Morning arrived without ceremony. The lights in the recovery bay shifted from night mode to a softer daylight hue, the kind meant to ease bodies back into time. Outside the narrow window, Fort Carson lay buried under fresh snow. The world was quiet. Not empty, but earned. The storm had passed. What remained was stillness. Rex noticed first. His ears lifted at the change in sound. Distant traffic waking, boots on frozen ground. A radio calling somewhere down the corridor. He didn't rise. He didn't brace. He stayed. Head resting against Evan's leg, breathing slow and even. Evan hadn't moved all night. At some point, someone had draped a blanket over his shoulders. He didn't know who. He hadn't asked. His back ached. His knee was stiff. His eyes burned with exhaustion. But he stayed upright. Because presence isn't announced. It's endured. Dr. Moore entered quietly. Clipboard tucked against her side. She paused in the doorway, taking in the scene. Dog. Man. Still exactly where she'd left them. "He held," she said softly. Evan nodded. "He will." She approached Rex slowly. The numbers were better. Not perfect, but moving the right way. "He's out of immediate danger," she said. "The next 48 hours will matter." But he's past the edge. Evan exhaled, a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Rex shifted, lifted his head slightly, eyes meeting Evan's, not anxious, not urgent, just checking. "I'm still here," Evan murmured. Rex settled again. "Transport team's ready," a nurse said. "Extended care is prepped." Dr. Moore nodded. "They'll want to move him soon." Evan looked down at Rex, reading the body, the tells, the truth beneath stillness. "Give us a minute." She hesitated, then nodded. Evan leaned forward slightly, hand settling behind Rex's ear, fingers brushing the old scar. Rex released a quiet sound. Not pain, not fear. Relief. They're going to move you, Evan said softly. I'll walk with you. I won't let them rush you. I won't disappear. Rex studied him, then pressed his head more firmly into Evan's leg. The promise was accepted. They moved together, down the quiet hallway, past watching eyes, past the place where everything almost broke. In extended care, Rex was settled again. Softer surface, familiar rhythm. Evan stayed close, constant in a changing space. You can sit, Dr. Moore said. Evan did. Rex nudged his boot. Gentle, deliberate. Not asking, confirming. Time 7,000 pounds. Outside, sunlight climbed. The base woke. Life moved forward. Inside, Rex rested. Evan stayed. He didn't know what the weeks would bring. He only knew this moment mattered. Rex breathed in, then out. And in that rhythm, a promise settled. Not spoken, not written, just understood. Neither of them would face the silence alone again. Morning arrived without ceremony. The lights in the recovery bay shifted from night mode to a softer daylight hue, the kind meant to ease bodies back into time. Outside the narrow window, Fort Carson lay buried under fresh snow. The world was quiet, not empty, but earned. The storm had passed. What remained was stillness. Rex noticed first. His ears lifted at the change in sound. Distant traffic waking, boots on frozen ground. A radio calling somewhere down the corridor. He didn't rise. He didn't brace. He stayed, head resting against Evan's leg, breathing slow and even. Evan hadn't moved all night. At some point, someone had draped a blanket over his shoulders. He didn't know who. He hadn't asked. His back ached. His knee was stiff. His eyes burned with exhaustion. But he stayed upright. Because presence isn't announced. It's endured. Dr. Moore entered quietly, clipboard tucked against her side. She paused in the doorway, taking in the scene. Dog. Man. Still exactly where she'd left them. He held, she said softly. Evan nodded. He will. She approached Rex slowly. The numbers were better, not perfect, but moving the right way. He's out of immediate danger, she said. The next 48 hours will matter. But he's past the edge. Evan exhaled, a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Rex shifted, lifted his head slightly, eyes meeting Evan's. Not anxious, not urgent. Just checking. I'm still here, Evan murmured. Rex settled again. Transport team's ready, a nurse said. Extended care is prepped. Dr. Moore nodded. They'll want to move him soon. Evan looked down at Rex, reading the body, the tells, the truth beneath stillness. Give us a minute. She hesitated, then nodded. Evan leaned forward slightly, hand settling behind Rex's ear, fingers brushing the old scar. Rex released a quiet sound. Not pain, not fear, relief. "They're going to move you," Evan said softly. "I'll walk with you. I won't let them rush you. I won't disappear." Rex studied him, then pressed his head more firmly into Evan's leg. The promise was accepted. They moved together. Down the quiet hallway, past watching eyes, past the place where everything almost broke. In extended care, Rex was settled again. Softer surface, familiar rhythm. Evan stayed close, constant in a changing space. "You can sit," Dr. Moore said. Evan did. Rex nudged his boot. Gentle, deliberate. Not asking. Confirming. Time 7,000 pounds. Outside, sunlight climbed. The base woke. Life moved forward. Inside, Rex rested. Evan stayed. He didn't know what the weeks would bring. He only knew this moment mattered. Rex breathed in, then out. And in that rhythm, a promise settled. Not spoken, not written, just understood. Neither of them would face the silence alone again. Morning arrived without ceremony. The lights in the recovery bay shifted from night mode to a softer daylight hue, the kind meant to ease bodies back into time. Outside the narrow window, Fort Carson lay buried under fresh snow. The world was quiet. Not empty, but earned. The storm had passed. What remained was stillness. Rex noticed first. His ears lifted at the change in sound. Distant traffic waking, boots on frozen ground. A radio calling somewhere down the corridor. He didn't rise. He didn't brace. He stayed, head resting against Evan's leg, breathing slow and even. Evan hadn't moved all night. At some point, someone had draped a blanket over his shoulders. He didn't know who. He hadn't asked. His back ached. His knee was stiff. His eyes burned with exhaustion. But he stayed upright. Because presence isn't announced. It's endured. Dr. Moore entered quietly, clipboard tucked against her side. She paused in the doorway, taking in the scene. Dog. Man. Still exactly where she'd left them. "He held," she said softly. Evan nodded. "He will." She approached Rex slowly. The numbers were better, not perfect, but moving the right way. "He's out of immediate danger," she said. "The next 48 hours will matter." "But he's past the edge." Evan exhaled, a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Rex shifted, lifted his head slightly, eyes meeting Evan's. Not anxious, not urgent. Just checking. "I'm still here," Evan murmured. Rex settled again. "Transport team's ready," a nurse said. "Extended care is prepped." Dr. Moore nodded. "They'll want to move him soon." Evan looked down at Rex, reading the body, the tells, the truth beneath stillness. "Give us a minute." She hesitated, then nodded. Evan leaned forward slightly, hand settling behind Rex's ear, fingers brushing the old scar. Rex released a quiet sound. Not pain, not fear, relief. They're going to move you, Evan said softly. I'll walk with you. I won't let them rush you. I won't disappear. Rex studied him, then pressed his head more firmly into Evan's leg. The promise was accepted. They moved together. Down the quiet hallway, past watching eyes, past the place where everything almost broke. In extended care, Rex was settled again. Softer surface, familiar rhythm. Evan stayed close, constant in a changing space. You can sit, Dr. Moore said. Evan did. Rex nudged his boot. Gentle, deliberate. Not asking. Confirming. Time 7,000 pounds. Outside, sunlight climbed. The base woke. Life moved forward. Inside, Rex rested. Evan stayed. He didn't know what the weeks would bring. He only knew this moment mattered. Rex breathed in, then out. And in that rhythm a promise settled, not spoken, not written, just understood. Neither of them would face the silence alone again.